The biggest barrier to entry when starting a farm, starting a homestead, getting out of the city is of course the price of farmland. So many of you comment under my videos that it is just simply too expensive for you to get into this game. So in this video, I'm going to debunk that a little bit and show you where you can, yes, in fact, find farmland acreage for less than $1,000 still in this country. There will never be a better time to do this because we are currently living through the biggest, largest wealth transfer of our lifetimes. It is occurring in the form of farmland. $24 trillion worth of this farmland is now going to change hands. The wealth transfer has begun. We are currently living through it now for the next 19 years. It's happening because the average age of the American farmer is over 60. They are going to retire soon or pass on. Their farmland is going to change hands. Not all of them had heirs. Not all of their heirs want to work their parents' farmland. So that is why so much of this land is going to be available and for sale. There will never be a better time for you to do this. Real quick, I'll link below to my Substack where I break down every week a different unconventional creative way to finance farmland if you're not exactly able to drop $100,000 to get your hands on something like this. You always get what you pay for in this lifetime, right? The same thing will hold true for this farmland. So I will also break down in this video why certain parcels of land may be cheaper than others. That way, when you are filtering through Zillow or LandWatch, and if you're wondering, hey, why is that so much cheaper than that? I'm going to explain to you why that might be. If you're wondering how I know this, it's because I just went through this process in 2023, buying the land you see behind me. And then in 2024, I had an Amish barn built and various animal structures put on the property. We're going to kick things off with this map that I think is important to show you guys so that you can see there's a lot of disparity, a lot of variety when it comes to the average cost of farmland in this country. Some parts of this map might be surprising to you. I know for me, if you look at a state like New York, which is where I am, upstate New York, or Washington or Oregon, for example, you might think to yourself, oh, farmland is going to be so expensive in a state like New York. But if you look at this map, farmland in New York State is actually a lot cheaper than Florida or Iowa or other places where you might have thought that the farmland on average was going to be more expensive. And that's something that I want to debunk in this video, that you can get your hands on affordable farmland if you are willing to go to states or areas that you might not have considered in the first place. As you can also see from this map, generally the cheapest acreage for farming in this country is going to be land that is not exactly suitable for farming. So you're looking at Wyoming, Montana, places where people open ranches, Oklahoma, Nevada, all those states out west. The land is cheap there because, again, you might not have road access. There might not be water, there might not be electricity, the grid might not be plugged up to that land, or that land itself might be dry, it might be arid, it might be more suitable for livestock, roaming, grazing, that type of business, which is in itself still a farming form of business. And I do follow a lot of young ranchers on social media that are absolutely making this a possibility for themselves. The people selling the land out in these states where there is not proper infrastructure set up charge a cheap rate for the land because they know you are going to be in for paying for other things. So for example, I bought raw land. It did have a well. It did not have a septic system or electricity at the road. I was able to get the electricity for free. If you call the electric provision company in the area where you want to have electricity brought to land, there is a footage minimum. They're not going to offer this freely, and I've covered this in other videos and articles I can link to below. There's a footage minimum in which they will bring in the electricity, they'll bring in the utility pole, the lines from a pole near yours. There's a minimum, there's a number they're gonna have. So for me, that was 500 feet. That was how my electricity ended up being free because my pole was 450 feet away from the nearest pole. Got incredibly lucky because the second it would have been over 500 feet, I would have had to foot the bill. But I did have to buy my septic system, which is actually down this hill right here, and that is something you're going to have to buy if you're going to buy farmland in some of these big western states where there's not a lot happening. So you will have to factor in that the acreage might be $700 an acre, but you're going to have to consider what the driveway would cost and what the septic system would cost. Septic system price reveal, I've never shared this before. I went with a $15,000 system that I had installed here on my land by the Amish. Yes, I paid for it in cash. There's different factors that go into what type of septic system you need. Depends on the size of the structure, how many people are going to be using it regularly, if you're going to have a business, and all that jazz. So it's not a one size fits all, but I just thought I would throw that out there if you guys are in the process of budgeting for something like this. If you guys want me to dive into what things cost or what elements that I had brought into my land, what it cost me, the process, all of that, let me know below. I can make more videos like that for you guys. Personally, that map that I showed you at the beginning of this, I'll throw up another map here. I think the best farmland deals are in these unexpected states like Missouri, like upstate New York, like Washington State, where you are going to get your hands on arable land, places where it rains. There's going to be irrigation, there's going to be water in your well, there's going to be a way to actually work the land as a farmer. And as you see with these states, the average cost per acreage of farmland is not so bad, or it's not nearly as bad as California or some of these other crazy states. And I think when people want to say to me, oh my God, I can't afford it, it costs, $30,000 an acre, I think they're referencing buying farmland in a state like California, which would just be crazy expensive to do. And I think when I say New York State, that everyone assumes, oh, New York City, but there's a massive state sitting way up here above New York City that people often forget about. Well, the solar farms don't forget about it because they like to bleed us dry up here with resources for New York City. But there's a ton of land in upstate New York that's incredibly arable, farmable, tons of farmers. You can probably hear in the background, I'm facing a lot of farmers right now getting their hay. I can tell you it's alive and well. With the farming up here, it's just cold in the winter. That's all. Your grow season's only really about end of April, May through October, but that works out for a lot of people who own orchards and crops like that. Now I'm going to throw up on the screen some of these cheap land deals I just found for you guys to check out in case you don't believe me. I'm finding these land deals on land.com, landwatch.com, Zillow.com. There's different places that you guys can find this land. I found my land on Zillow. That is how you are going to start your search. Of course, there is for sale by owner. If there is an area that you deeply want to buy land in, drive around it this weekend. Stop at people's farm stands. Get to know the area. I think that's important. You should like where you're buying land. You should feel comfortable. You should feel like part of the local populace. You shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I stick out so bad, people are going to hate me here. It should feel like home to you. So like this area felt like home to me immediately when I found it. It wasn't even a question in my heart. And that is stuff people don't often talk about with investing, but there absolutely should be an emotional connective component to it. Though I do think starting the search online is incredibly helpful and can help diminish the amount of time you're going to have to put into shopping deals. So I found my 6.74 acres, that's my land here. I found that starting with a search on Zillow, I drove out here and I walked it. I checked it out. I made sure that it felt like something that I wanted to do or be a part of. And you guys know I instantly saw the bees on the flowers and heard the humming coming from it, and the rest is history with it. But that is how you guys are going to start your search to find this cheap farmland. I recommend using the internet. So yeah, land.com, landwatch.com, Zillow, and any other regional syndicate real estate websites that might exist in an area, might not exist in other areas. I would check it all out. It's free on the internet to use Google. Before I jump into your financing options, when you find this cheap land, cheap acreage in the United States, if you are planning to go off-grid, which so many people are today, and I applaud off-grid living, I am all for it. I understand there's some sketchy things happening in this country. People are feeling a little nervous about the grid. And if you want to go off-grid, solar is absolutely an option to have as a backup power source or your main power source if you're going to buy the acreage in the West that I showed you guys where they get so much sun every single day. I may be anti-solar farm, solar companies snatching up thousands of acres of our arable farmland, but I'm absolutely not anti-personal solar setups. I have my own personal solar panel and generator port I'm going to show you guys that I use for different scenarios in the wintertime to keep my bunny shed warm and keep my chicken coop warm. Here's my HP 3000 by Jackery, and this thing allows me to do absolutely everything if something has gone on with the grid, which comes in handy in the wintertime here because the power does go out quite a lot due to blizzards, and I want to make sure my animals here on my homestead are happy and comfortable. My animal structures do not reach the outlets in my barn, so the HP 3000 is essential for me keeping them comfortable in the summer with fans and warm in the winter with heaters. The HP 3000 is also designed to keep a fridge running for up to 2 days, protecting food, reducing waste, and giving families peace of mind. Anytime there is a power outage here, I know my animals are going to be comfortable, which is all that matters to me. I used to think until 2023, finding these cheap land deals, especially raw land with no structures, amenities, utilities of any kind on it, I used to think I absolutely could not get a loan or any financing for it. And I'm so glad I did a simple Google search that night from my apartment, which is how I found Farm Credit that went on to become my lender for this land. So I do have a loan For the land you see behind me, I do not have a loan out on the rest of the property that was paid for in cash, but I am breaking down in my series all of the different unconventional ways you guys can finance this cheap acreage once you find it in our country. Yes, there is cheap farmland once you find it. There are so many different creative arrangements for financing it. There's loans and grants through your state, loans and grants through the USDA. There's loans through Farm Credit. That is a nationwide system. I did not need prior farming experience to use Farm Credit. They're setting up eco-villages. They're setting up crowdfunding campaigns. I just covered that this week. You can set up crowdfunding campaigns that allow people to either donate to your organic farming vision or even invest in it. There's different platforms that will allow you to do that. There's being gifted farmland. There's working with nonprofits that put farming easements, conservation easements, different things like that on the land. All of these options will make your barrier to entry. It will make the farmland more accessible and available to you if you are dealing with a financial situation where you just can't figure out how to make this a reality. And as I always like to share in these videos, the misconception that you need 100 acres to be a real farmer has to go away. I think it's keeping so many people from jumping on doing something like this. I always love to show everyone what 6.74 acres, that's not even all that. You're looking at like 4 acres behind me, how much land that is. I will never use all this land. I've committed myself to leaving most of it wild anyway for the pollinators, but I always like to just show people, give you an idea, if you have only ever lived in an urban or rural setting, how much land 4 acres is. And I think when people realize they only need 4 acres, it makes this more affordable and accessible than when you think you need 30 acres. And land's a big responsibility, keeping an eye on it, making sure there's no trespassing, making sure there's no issues you're unaware of. It's kind of exhausting. I don't think I'd want personally any more than 7 acres. That's up to you if you want to start a large scale, medium size, whatever farm. Just know what you're getting yourself into. But I absolutely think to take the plunge, all you need is a couple acres and you can find cheap acreage in this country. Of course, if it's cheap, check on its location to town, its proximity to town. Are you 2 hours away from the nearest hospital? That'll do it. Is there a driveway? Mine didn't have a driveway. Factor in the cost to put in a driveway. Is there water? Is there power? Is there a septic plan or system? All of those things. If you have none of those things, you're gonna get really cheap land. If you have some of those things, you're gonna get an okay deal. If you have all of those things, the land might be more expensive, but just do the math. Is it worth it in the end to have spent a little bit more on the land if it at least came with some of those assurances? Last thing, always call the zoning officer in the town where you were thinking about buying land and run your idea past typically him, what you plan to do with the land. He will tell you right then and there on the phone what is or isn't allowed. He'll probably send you a link to the town charter. Every town in our country is different. Just because you could do something in a town in Idaho does not mean you can do that same thing in a town in Florida. That's kind of what makes our country so great. There's a lot of variation and flexibility. It can also make it very frustrating though, because there is not a one size fits all. So do your due diligence, or just follow me here because I'm going to keep you guys updated and abreast on all of the things you need to do to basically do what I am doing here. As I always say, I don't know what I'm doing most days, but I took the plunge in 2023. It luckily paid off buying raw land, and I'm just trying to share with you guys what I learned throughout the process and also make it more accessible if you're looking for cheap acreage around the beautiful United States of America. Do you guys like the sound of the meadow behind me? It really is so peaceful. If that's what you're wanting this for, to be out somewhere that's peaceful, I'm here to tell you it is indeed peaceful. Really, it's great for your health. With our country's largest wealth transfer underway, I will be coming back with more videos on creative ways to buy this land, how to find good land, how to qualify the land, how to find cheap land, how to develop a homestead, farmstead, eco-village, mini community, you name it. I will be reporting on it here, of course, with some commentary and footage of the Amish sprinkled out, because I love them and think they are an exemplary group of human beings in this country that we could all learn a lot from. With that, be back soon. Bye.